Mesdames et messieurs, merci d'accueillir Martin Scorsese et toute l'équipe de Killers of the Flower Moon. We're going to start very soon because I know that you guys have a lot of questions, but let me first introduce to you the participant of the press conference today. To my left, Monsieur Leonardo DiCaprio. Next to him, Lilly Gladstone. To the end of the table, we have the honor to have with us the Chief Nation Osage, Standing Bear. Of course, Monsieur Robert De Niro. And Monsieur le réalisateur, Martin Scorsese. All right, guys, we're going to talk about the movie in a minute, but I just want to start with that. I mean, I saw the image this morning, and your emotion at the end of the screening during the long-standing ovation was like, it was really touching. I mean, I wonder, it's a question for all of you. What was the feeling at the end of the screening yesterday? Let's start with you, Mr. Scorsese.
Well, it was the culmination of years of work and an extraordinary warmth and I think love that was expressed. I don't know, I'm saying for me, I'm talking about for Lilly, for Leo, for Bob, for the Osage. All of this seemed to come together in the room. It really did. And I think it came from the heart. And I think I know it was so moving because of that.
Lilly, you want to add something?
I'm sorry, would you repeat?
What was the feeling yesterday after the screening?
Gratitude. Yeah, it's really special, as Marty said, having all of the people that are representing this film here together in so many different ways. It was felt very just. In a lot of ways, felt very just.
Monsieur De Niro?
Yeah, what Marty said, I agree. It was perfect the way he said what the experience was for us. It was really very nice. We haven't been here, I guess, it's
76?
76. With Taxi Driver.
World, the ancient world.
Yeah. So it was nice being back in this way.
Yeah.
Leo?
What can I say except that it felt like a very important moment, especially how the Osage community embraced us telling this story, gave us the trust in our adaptation of the novel, and to have them here with us side by side to tell such a personal tragedy to their entire community was a beautiful moment. And I just took a lot of mental pictures. It was something that I'm never going to forget. We took great pride in being able to tell this story as best we could, and we were just incredibly happy that they were here with us, side by side.
And Chief, it must have been very special for you. I mean, first of all, the movie it's of course an unbelievable story. I mean, it's like fascinating and frightening and scary and everything you want. But it's also a presentation of a culture that we didn't know. And I mean, Martin did a terrific job in presenting the culture, the tradition, the way it works. How did it feel to show that to the world? It was the first screening yesterday. So how did it feel to introduce this culture to the world around us?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you all for your interest. It being the movie, early on, I asked Mr. Scorsese, how are you going to approach this story? And he said, I'm going to tell a story about trust between Molly and Ernest, trust between the outside world and the Osage, and a betrayal of those trusts, deep betrayal. And my people suffered greatly, and to this very day, those effects are with us. But I can say, on behalf of the Osage, Marty Scorsese and his team have restored trust, and we know that trust will not be betrayed.
Okay, we're going to start with the questioning. We have a question right here.
Hi, it's Jason Gorber from ThatShelf.com in Canada. I would be remiss if not recognizing that the tragic murder of Indigenous women continues to this day in North America. So thoughts out to those still missing and murdered in my country and the country's south. Mr. Scorsese, Mr. DiCaprio, this film started originally as more of a straight-ahead cop drama like the source material. And you decided to go in a very different direction, which was very costly, very time-consuming, but resulted in being able to tell the story that Lilly and Leo, you get to tell of this dynamic of this relationship instead of focusing on that. Mr. Scorsese, we wouldn't have minded if you just made the straight-ahead movie, but you decided to take this twist. Can you talk about this stage in your career of still taking chances, and if the two actors and Mr. De Niro can discuss bringing these roles to life in such a subtle, complex, and nuanced way?
Thank you. Yeah, we touched upon it after having myself and Eric Roth and all of us together trying to get the story expressed from the point of view of the Bureau of Investigation coming in. And I said, well, I think the audience is ahead of us. They know it's not a whodunit, it's who didn't do it. And at one point, this is after 2 years of working on the script, at one point Leo came to me and he was going to play Tom White. Was it Tom? I think that Jesse plays. And he said to me, where's the heart of this story? And I had some meetings with the Osage and some dinners at Grey Horse and, of course, in Pawhuska. And they got up and spoke. And I learned a lot about them in those 3 hours. I learned about the people themselves and the stories, and they're all related to each other, and there's still relations, and there's still issues, and so-and-so was in love. No, he wasn't. Yes, she was. No, and it goes on like that. And I said, well, there's the story. The story is in the character that the least is written about, Ernest. And, of course, that's what Leo wanted to do. He said, let's try to find who Ernest is, or let's create Ernest as an example, or as a I use my words carefully, but as a template for that tragedy of love, trust, and betrayal of the indigenous people when the white. It just happened, you know? And I said, well, if we could really get in there and twist and turn the story around, and then I knew we had, when we met Lilly, we knew we had it, you see. And so that was the way to go. As far as taking risks at this age, what else can I do? What am I going to do? I don't know. What do they want me to do? I don't understand. You take a risk. No, let's go do something comfortable. Are you kidding? Comfortable, like sitting comfortable on a set in the heat? You might as well be risking. You know, I don't mean to be flip about it, but it is. You're right. It is a big gamble, but I don't know. We took a chance. Sorry, Leo.
You know, I remember us talking very early on about what Marty does so incredibly well is he's able to expose the humanity of even some of the most twisted, sinister characters you could ever imagine. He brings out the human condition in his work. We saw a few Montgomery Clift films very early on.
Yeah, The Heiress.
Yeah, The Heiress, Place in the Sun, yeah. Red River. And I think the gamble was to take on this incredibly important story that really was a reckoning with our past. I mean, so much has been learned in the last few years, and this story has, much like the Tulsa massacre, has been something that people have started to learn about and started to understand as a part of our culture, as a part of our history. And it was a really a throwback to, you know, great epic films of the 1940s that have at its center this very twisted, bizarre love story that we really worked very hard on. I mean, we almost went, after the screenplay, all of us, from almost an anthropological perspective, Marty was there every day. We were talking to the community, trying to hear the real stories and trying to incorporate the truth as best we possibly could. And no matter what people feel about the film, I know we all did that work and we tried our very best to pay respects to the real stories and incorporate that into the narrative.
Lily, you want to add something about the second part of the story, how you brought to life these so subtle and beautiful relationships, Molly and Ernest style?
The first thing that just stands out in my mind, not to correct anything about what you just said, but I think what we did transcended anthropological. We're artists, we're storytellers, we reach into the humanity, and Native peoples are used to having anthropologists come in curious about everything that we do. These artistic souls on this stage here cared about telling a story that pierces the veil of what society tells us we're supposed to care about and not. By focusing on these conflicted characters, who else is going to challenge people to challenge their own complicity in white supremacy and such a platform, except for this man here? Other artists are doing that work. People listen to what this one says. So turning the lens, turning the big lens, the most golden lens into areas where our communities, we're speaking of the 1920s, Osage community. We're talking about Black Wall Street in Tulsa. We're talking about a lot in our film, and why the hell does the world not know about these things? Our communities always have. It's so central to everything about how we understand our place in the world. We also still need this, we need these allies. We need these allies, It's, so yes, it's, certainly there was the interest there, but I'm just giving you more credit than that. You were there as a human being, not as somebody who was studying people. We were immersed there, and there's no other way to tell these stories. There's no other way than to step in and allow the world that you're in to shape what you're saying. So, all of that. It's hard to, with a character like Molly, get too in there and too expository or try to explain like the thought behind the look, because that's doing this audience a disservice as well. Molly was a trick in holding true to not only the way she's perceived in the book but by the legacy that she's left in the community. By playing an Osage woman who conducts herself with grace and with measure, but also with humor and with unshakable strength. It's the reason that those of you who have seen the film, and not to ruin it for anybody, but it was the driving force of why the end needed to be what it is. The cultural perpetuity, the perseverance. And Molly is an example of somebody who, I almost don't want to talk about an acting process. When it comes to her, I just had to be there and receive what the community told me she needed to be. What my own family has told me about my great-grandmother Lilly, who would have been Molly's contemporary, who was also a devoutly Catholic, but also a very traditional Blackfoot woman. And all of those things. So yeah, it was, I'm not sure it's me finding it so much as it finding me.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Chaz Ebert from Chicago.
Jazz, hi.
Hi, Marty. Thank you so much for coming back to Cannes. It was a long time, but with such a masterful film. You're a masterful filmmaker, and my husband once called you our nation's finest filmmaker. this was a big story to wrap your arms around, and it was a very shameful chapter in our history. It's part Western, part romance, part true crime, and I want to give thanks to your editor, Thelma, because I'm sure it was a very big editing job. My question for you is, how much did you work with the tribal council, and this is a question for you and the chief, to make sure that you got some of the feelings right? Thank you so much for not making this just a story about the FBI running in and saving everybody. You put it in a historical context, and you didn't make it the big story. I want to know, with the chief and with you, how did you work with the tribal council of elders to make this more authentic?
Well, I mean, the first thing when the book was presented to me and the script, I automatically understood. I said, well, if we go anywhere near indigenous nations, we have to be very, very respectful and try to, I got to tell you, I mean, you just have a first meeting with the Chief Standing Bear, and then you have another meeting, and you have a dinner, and they get up and they speak. The guys get up and speak, and they say a prayer, and there's a ritual, and I was so moved and so affected by that. By every time, even if any of you were lucky enough yesterday to hear Tali give a speech at the hotel, and this is what grounded me, and I knew what I heard, what their values are about love and respect and loving the earth, and I'm not talking about at this point of a political issue, but I'm talking about really understanding how to live on this planet. And I found that the values were so important to me. And it reoriented me every time they spoke. It just reoriented me as to what we're doing here. I mean, making a movie, yes, but what we're doing here on Earth. And so it seemed to lock in. And actually, we began a process. When I said to be very respectful, I wanted to know everything I could about the Osage, everything, and it was overwhelming, overwhelming. You could even go into part of their Montesquieu took some aspects of their organization, which later on the founding fathers based some of American the formation of the Declaration of Independence, and it goes way back. And so all of this, the more I found out, the more I wanted to put in. So, and that began a process where Marianne Bauer, who's our associate producer and my archivist, began working with the Chief Standing Bear and the council and all the people the key people there in Oklahoma, as to every detail of, and without making it fussy. That was it. It has to feel lived in. You know what I mean? It had to feel natural. You know, even to the designs of the blankets and who the people were standing in the background, vertical lines this way, horizontal that way, those colors, not those colors, everything we could think of. And that's why, to a certain extent, we begin with the pipe person. The pipe is a person, and it's got power. And now, that power is going to be, people don't know how to use that power. We have to bury it. It's not going to lose its power, I don't think. But the new ones are not going to know, because the whites have come in and changed everything. And so that pipe has to be buried in a beautiful ceremony, you know. I mean, right there, I said, well, yeah, I'm in it, you know. So I'm sorry if I didn't get too much detail there, Chief, but I think you could give a little more. You can give a little more detail as to when we got together and.
Well, actually, I want to go back a little bit.
Oh yes, I will.
Okay.
To when Imperative purchased, I understand, purchased the rights to the book by David Gran, and we were talking to some of your representatives and expressing our concern that we did not want to lose our voice in the story. And eventually, when some of your team members came and participated in some prayer services that we had and dinner, I remember some imperatives standing up and saying, we will make a movie the Osage will be proud of. And then also that sticks with us is the statement, we're going to tell this story through the eyes of Molly. From that moment on, we thought, well, this is a different group. And as we developed over the years, remember we had the pandemic in between, and everybody had to pull back and then re-engage. We just picked right up with our language and culture, people that Mr. Scorsese said, first of all, we're going to film here. We're going to film with the Osage. We're going to invite Osage to come in, not only on extras, but there are young Osage working behind the cameras in cinematography with world-class people and in costume. Our people were employed in making the costumes and the song and so forth. And then when you see the movie, you see our language, which is endangered, but you see our language spoken here, and you can probably talk a better Osage than some of our Osage, right? You know, I was sitting next to Mr. De Niro last night, and I got very excited about some of his Osage, but I remember talking to Van Bighorse, our language coordinator. He's more than a coordinator. He's the Secretary of Language, Education, and Culture. Talking to Van and talking to my senior advisor, John Williams, who unfortunately passed away and made friendships between us all, about how it is being done there on the set. And they impressed upon me how hard these actors worked, how hard they worked, how serious this business is to them. And for a citizen outside of this world, we get our own conceptions, preconceptions about what is involved, and maybe think it, oh, well, Bob De Niro just wakes up and naturally everything comes right out. But my team and my people expressed to me, these are very hardworking people, and they had in their minds and with them physically, my people working with them, men and women, young and old, working with them, and they responded, and it's just beautiful. They could make 2 of these movies.
I have to say, too, the sequence I described about the pipe comes from the beautiful book called The Pipe for February by Charles Redcorn, which we hope to get made into a film, too.
That one tells a lot more from an Osage perspective, watching what the Reign of Terror does from when the mystery starts to when you start losing family, the inner relationships of these interracial marriages from an Osage perspective. Yeah, all of it. Seek it out. It's a beautiful book.
Beautiful.
So De Niro, how was it to get inside this culture, but then because of the character, you have to keep a step back and be how did you keep this balance? What you do is extraordinary, I must say.
Well, I don't, you know, I don't understand how my character, I don't understand a lot about him.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand it. But, you know, people do things. He has to be charming. He has to win people over. He has to do things to get them. Why he betrays them in this way, it's all I can do is try my best to. He has an action, attention, goes from here to here to here. He does that with the people, and I think part of it with him, I guess, is sincere. It's just the other part where he's betraying them. There's a kind of a feeling of entitlement it's almost, I guess you could say we became a lot more aware of after George Floyd with systemic racism. And so that's what it is. And lo and behold, what happened there that we never knew of while we were there was the Black Wall Street massacre.
While we were shooting, yeah.
While we were
I
shooting.
didn't realize, yeah.
It's the banality of evil. It's the thing that we have to watch out for. And we see it today, of course, we all know who I'm going to talk about, but I won't say the name. Because that guy is stupid. Imagine if you're smart. Even Hale.
Yeah.
Hale was smart in many ways, and so it's something that is systemic, and that's the scary part about it. I'm reading a book now called Rat Line. It's about the Nazis that were trying to get back through to South America here and there, hiding out in Rome and so on, in Italy. It's fascinating, but it's just.
Well, it's
interesting. It's just the whole thing is it's there, and you got to really keep your eye on it.
Yeah, it's about a kind of superiority.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the Third Reich superiority, the masters. Well, I may love them, but, you know, I'm superior to them, so they're going to die anyway. I mean, that's the thinking,
Yeah,
I guess.
He felt he was loved by the people, and some people probably did love him.
Yeah.
Not looking at the other side. I still don't understand certain things.
too.
I don't know.
I've heard there were some Osage that were at his funeral,
That's right.
Yeah.
believed until the day he died.
Yeah.
And after that he was their friend, that he wasn't guilty of what he was charged of.
There you go. I mean, look with Trump. People.
Oh, you said it. You
I
said it.
hate to say it.
Don't say it. You said it. Damn.
I hate to say it. But we see what that is.
Yeah, but it's like,
And there are people who think that he could do a good job. Imagine that. How insane that is. That's all I'll say.
All right, we got a question over there, gentleman's virtual. Marcus.
Hi, my name is Marcus, work for One Press TV from Sweden. First want to say it's really a great honor to have you here. Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro, you've been working together for decades, and maybe many people thought that Irishman was your last masterpiece together, and now you're giving us another great movie together. Robert De Niro, I want to ask you a question. What do you thought about the project when Martin Scorsese told you about it? And Leigh was mentioning he was in part of like creating his character a little bit. Did you have any flexibility to be part of creating your character as well?
What was that?
Do you have any responsibility in creating the character itself?
Yes. Myself, I have the responsibility. Yes.
did you have any?
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, we worked on it. And then I read the book when I was told about it and wanted to read it anyway, of course. And then Leo and Marty told me that they were going to do it in another way, more about the relationship of the uncle, Hale, my character, and Ernest, Leo's character. That made a lot of sense to me. And I said, whatever you do, great, I'm in, of course. And it is much better. The book is terrific the way it is.
Yeah, Grant's book. God.
But what Leo and Marty wanted to steer it in is even more a better choice for this material especially. It's not that you want the good guy to come in and save the day. We know that story. We've done it, and we've traditionally have done movies over the years where the good guy goes down south and saves the day. The good guy goes into any indigenous area, saves the day. This is, and that's all valid for the FBI in telling that part of the story, but this is much more important, if I could say that.
Right, we have a question in the corner over there.
Hello, Maike. Hello, Maike Kronberg from Germany, from TV Movie. I have a question for Leonardo DiCaprio. From your point of view as an actor and as a movie lover yourself, what makes Martin Scorsese the greatest of all time?
Yeah. Your horns around here. No, no. Deny
Don't
it.
do it.
Deny
Deny it. I deny it. Well, without question, I can only speak from a personal perspective, having grown up watching the two of them from a cinematic perspective, how it not only influenced everything that I do as an actor, the incredibly high levels of artistry that they've been able to accomplish together in that relationship not only changed me, it was the template for me. It influenced the entire generation of actors that I grew up with. And what can I say is that that Marty's perseverance and his ferocity in wanting to tell the truth about these stories, no matter how ugly, no matter how bizarre, no matter how uncomfortable, is his mastery. And his respect for cinema's history, what's been done before him, the influence of the great directors from his past that have made him the director that he is just unparalleled. He's been able to define himself as the singular director of our time, and he's continuing to make these incredible movies that tell important stories like this film. I'm like all of you. I'm just constantly in awe of his ability to continue telling the truth the way he does, with his characters and with his stories.
All right.
Thank you.
On the other side of the room.
Hello, this is Carol Guerrero from the international news network Deutsche Welle, and my question is for Martin Scorsese and the actors. For what I know, you start shooting this film in 2021, that means in the middle of the pandemic, so I would like to know how COVID-19 affected the shooting, if that happened.
How COVID
Yes.
affected? Yes, and we all had COVID. We had COVID working conditions, masks, masks on, masks off, and everyone was vaccinated. We had. Don't forget, there was a year and a half I lost from COVID, where we stopped working on the script. Everything stopped, so I just kept working on the script, and we had planned this picture back. I think actually we planned to do it before Irishman at one point. And then you said, oh no, the Irishman, we have to do the CGI de-aging. It's going to get worse if we wait later. So you're right. So we did Irishman first, and we're still working on this. And so the COVID, I must say, Adam Sumner's our co-producer, and Dan Lupi is a producer here, and Bradley and everybody, I didn't feel as much of a disturbance in terms of like not being able to do certain things because of the COVID restrictions. We worked with them very well, I thought. All you guys did beautifully. I just followed what you guys told me to do on that.
I just have to really quickly also thank the Osage Nation for vaccinating people.
I was going to second that.
The Osage Nation vaccinated.
Yes.
They were thrilled to see the stars.
They vaccinated us. Yeah.
Yeah. Osage Tribal Health Clinic was a star-studded place to be for a minute there.
All right, second row.
Hello, I'm Ananu Bakradze from the Republic of Georgia. I can't believe that I'm talking to you now. Well, the story you told us, the story of Osage people, reminded me about every injustice happening now around us. And I think that people speak less and less about the war in Ukraine. And I would kindly like to ask you about your opinion, what is happening now in Ukraine, and about Russian aggression. Thank you.
This is a question for?
For Mr. Scorsese.
Well, obviously, very, very nervous about the aggression of Russia, very nervous about that whole area. I look at, one has to remember, everyone's too old now, people gone, but people seem to be, the younger generations don't remember World War II. And they don't remember the Balkan nations and what happened there, and what happened with Poland, and between the Russians and the Germans, and what happened with Poland in the 18th century with Napoleon, and and the Russians again. So this is an area that's always being contested. My feeling is, coming from a country of being used to a system of government which, as a republic, it involves free speech, involves you can have an adversary without poisoning or killing them. This is the one to avoid. You don't want to live like that. You may live in another culture, like in Western culture, and the Western culture has its detriment. It has its negative things too. It's consumerism, the value of everything in terms of money is most important and shouldn't be. And yet, I still feel there is a sense we have to support the countries that at least are trying for some sort of democratic process. Because it reminds me of the period, reading in the history, reminds you of the period of the 1930s where democracy was out, everything was out, it became pure fascism and communism, bang, and that was it. And now it's deeper and stronger, I think, because it has to do with the very values of how you live, what's important to you in life. And I got to tell you, I think freedom to speak is the most important, really. And that doesn't mean, yelling fire in a crowded theater when there is no fire. Okay, that's the old cliche, but it's true. But freedom to be able to express yourself and to live a life that's somewhat, life is hard enough at times, and it's joyful, but it's hard, but, that's benign in peaceful times.
That is all the time we have. So, mesdames et messieurs, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
I think the rest of the time.
Well handled.
Oh my God. Go back to World War II. But it's true.
Hey, that was fun. That was fun.
That whole area.
Yep.
They lived under them for 30, 40 years.